Uh, Good afternoon, dear students of HSC class in Rajshahi College. Today I am here again with the rules of transformation of sentences. This is my last class on the topic transformation of sentences. Today I will discuss the rules of transforming complex sentences into simple one and the simple sentences complex sentences into compound ones and the compound sentences into complex one. First I will discuss the rules of making complex sentences compound. You know by this time that both the complex sentences and the compound sentences have more than one clauses, and both types of sentences always have more than one finite verbs. Therefore, when you are asked in your examination to transform a complex sentence into compound or a compound sentence to transfer into a complex one, you need not bring any change in the finite verb in the sentence. But you have to follow some rules. I am telling you while I solve the problems that you see on the whiteboard. I have written 4 complex sentences. I was sorry because I lost it. She came here after I left the house. I can come if you call me. Unless he came, I would not go. You see, all the sentences have more than one finite verbs or one clauses, and all the sentences are complex one because of having relative conjunctions. Well, let me another example with the use of relative pronoun. He is a doctor though I have again used a relative conjunction. He is a doctor who is old. When you are asked to make these sentences compound, try to follow how I make them compound. There are some subtle rules to make them compound. For example, as I have told, you do not need to change any finite verb or the clauses. Therefore, the clauses will remain unchanged. In the first sentence, we have 2 clauses. I was sorry and I lost it, and the clauses are combined with by the relative conjunction because. Always remember that the subordinate clause in the complex sentence should be written at the beginning of the compound sentence. I repeat, the subordinate clause of the complex sentence should be written at the beginning of the compound sentence. Therefore, when you start writing this, when you go for making this sentence compound, write the clause with the relative conjunction because, that is, I lost it at the beginning of the compound sentence. Then use a conjunction in lieu of because. From the chart I had given you to determine the relation between the relative pronouns, relative conjunctions and conjunctions, there you will find that and is used to alternate because. I lost it and I was sorry. Never write the complex in this way. I was sorry and I lost it. I was sorry and I lost it. This is a wrong sentence. If you translate in Bangla, you will understand the difference between using the subordinate clause at the beginning of the compound sentence and using the subordinate clause as the second clause in the compound sentence. The subordinate clause in a complex sentence will always be the main clause in the compound sentence, and the main clause in the complex sentence will always be the coordinate clause in the compound sentence. Similarly, let us make the second complex sentence on the blackboard compound. She came here after I left the house. We have the relative conjunction after, and therefore we will write this clause, I left the house when and she came here. I left the house and she came here. Look, she came here after I left the house, that is, her coming was done after my leaving the house, and thus if you write this clause at the beginning of the compound sentence, that will bring the actual meaning of the sentence. I left the house and she came here. But if we had before, instead of this, instead of after, in that case, this is the only variation in the rule, that if before is used as the clause connector, the clause after before should be placed after the main clause in the coordinate sentence. Therefore, for such a sentence like she came here before I left the house, you will not change the position of the clauses. She came here and I left the house. That is, The clause with the clause connector before should be placed at the beginning of the finite, at the beginning of the compound sentence. And if before was placed at the beginning of this sentence, before she came here, I left home, then the clause I left the house would come first, and she came here should be used as the coordinate clause. That is, all relative conjunctions, when relative conjunctions are used as the clause connector, the subordinate clause should be written at the beginning of the compound sentence. There is an exception. The exception is with the relative conjunction before. When you get the relative conjunction before as the clause connector in a complex sentence, you should make sure that when you make the sentence compound, use the clause, write the clause with the clause connector before at the beginning of the compound sentence, and then write the main clause or the clause without any connector after the first one. Now, we have a complex sentence in which the clauses are added with the relative conjunction if. I can come if you call me. When you have a clause with if as the clause connector and the subject is a second person one, make it an imperative sentence to make the sentence compound. If you call me in the comparative sentence, the subject of the subordinate clause is in the second person. As I told you, the subordinate clause in a complex sentence should be written at the beginning of its compound form. When you have a subordinate clause with the clause connector if and you make the compound sentence an imperative one. Call me or I cannot come. Well, one thing you need to remember is that when you have a subordinate clause with if, the verb of the other clause should be written in the negative form, and vice versa. When you have a clause connector unless is the negative form of if. Since you have unless as the clause connector, therefore you need not make any change when you have the sentence unless. Where there is an if in the complex sentence, you should make a finite verb negative when you make the sentence compound. Anyway, unless he came, and for unless use or in the compound sentence, he came or I would not go. he came or I would not go. And the last sentence on the board, he is a doctor who is old. As I have told, there will be no change in the number of clauses. Simply alternate relative pronoun who with a conjunction, and for all relative pronouns you will use only one conjunction. He is a doctor and is old. If you like, you can use he, the same subject, again after the conjunction and. He is a doctor and he is old. So, I think you have learned how to make the complex sentences compound one. The only, you should remember only two rules. All relative, rule 1, all relative pronouns should be alternated by and to make the complex sentence compound. And number 2, always make the subordinate subordinate clause of the always make the subordinate clause of a complex sentence the main clause of its compound form. But in this rule, exception is with before as clause connector. The clause with the clause connector before should be the coordinate clause in the compound sentence. Otherwise, all subordinate clauses with relative conjunctions should be the main clause in the compound sentence. Well, I think I do not need to show any more example. Try to follow these rules. Sometimes I see that students think, because they know that either of the clauses should be used at the beginning of the compound sentence. But the thing is that only the clause in the complex sentence with a clause connector should be the main clause in the compound sentence, except in the case of before as the clause connector. When we have before as the clause connector, we make sure that the clause with before should be the coordinate clause or the second clause in the compound sentence. Now, I will show you some examples of compound sentences transformed into complex one. Compound to complex. This is the easiest job for the HSC students if you follow the rule. You need not do anything except only replacing the replacing the conjunction in the compound sentence with a relative conjunction to make it complex one. Just see and use that relative conjunction at the beginning of the sentence. I met him and he was happy. Just omit and write the relative conjunction at the beginning of the compound sentence. For and you can write because, as, since. Either of the three, you can write either one of the three relative conjunctions: because, as, since. I met him, he was happy. Number 2, do it or he may be angry. Do it or he may be angry. Do it or he may be angry. For or, as I told, you will use if. And I told you that in between the use an alternation of or and if, you need to make a verb negative. Here if you write in this way, if you do it, he may be angry. This is not a correct answer because the sense and meaning of the clause changes if you write the verb in the subordinate clause in the affirmative form. You have to write, if you do not do it. If you do not do it, he may be angry. Let me take the help of Bangla. The sense of this sentence, do it or he may be angry, is in Bangla, কাজটি করো অথবা সে রাগ করবে. It easily implies that unless the work is done, he will be angry or he may be angry. Therefore, instead of using unless, you can write in this way, if you do not do it, he may be angry, or unless you do it, he may be angry. You should know the rule, and not only know, you should remember it. If you have any change with such conjunctions or nor, if, unless, make sure that there is something such as making an arrangement in the affirmative and negative forms. He came here but he did not know me. You know, this is a compound sentence because of having two clauses and clauses combined by, connected by the conjunction but. If you are asked to write this sentence in the complex form, you simply use though according to the chart given to you. Though he came here he did not know me. I have seen students often making mistakes when they go for changing such sentences, the structure of the sentences, because they are unaware of the uses of the finite verbs, non-finite verbs, and in most cases, students in Bangladesh at HSC level fail to determine which relative pronouns, conjunctions and relative conjunctions should be used properly. So far, well, let me see how you will find the use of the need of using a relative pronoun. Just look at the sentence I am writing now. We are the students and we are happy. When you have a be verb, a be verb and a complement, not any adverb. Only a be verb and a complement in the coordinate clause of the compound sentence. Just use a relative pronoun who. If you write we are the students, who functions as the subject, well, you need not use we in the complex one. So, the complex form of this sentence is we are the students who are happy. Who are happy. Well, I have in the 4 classes so far discussed the rules of transferring the sentences in between their simple, complex and compound forms. You know, we are not getting any opportunity to take the normal classes in the classrooms, and therefore we are deprived of our regular practice of teaching. I usually teach grammar at HSC level in Rajshahi College when the students are promoted to class 12, but unfortunately this year we are not getting such any occasion to have an interactive class. Usually in those classes, in the previous sessions, I tell the students in the classroom to transform sentences, and I have seen even good students of science group very rarely pass the test of transforming all the sentences correctly. The mistakes they do when they are asked to change the sentences are very silly, and I feel that they realize because they rely upon examples rather than the rules. They rely examples rather than the rules. Grammar is absolutely based upon certain rules. There may be sometimes some exceptions in the rules, but when you go for solving any grammatical question or problem, you have to remember the standard rule of suggested for the problem. And as a teacher of English, with my 27 years experience of teaching English, I have seen that knowing the rules is better than memorizing the examples. If you are asked something outside your known things, you sometimes make mistakes because of your lack in the rules. So, I have tried to discuss the rules as elaborately as possible in these classes. This is my last class with you on this topic of transforming sentences into in their structure. I don't know whether you are benefited with it, because online classes have a limitation. For a good class taking, eye contact between the students and the teachers is very much important. A teacher can feel whether the students understand his or her speech while looking at the eyes of the students. Therefore, it becomes easier for the teachers to deliver their job more effectively. Unfortunately, online classes cannot provide such an opportunity. I really cannot understand whether you have understood me. This class is going on live, and if any student have any if any student has any problem with today's subject, you can ask me in the comment box on the live of this class, which will be kept in the web page of Rajshahi College. Now, before finishing this class, let us go for revisiting the most commonest things of transforming the simple, complex and compound sentences. The basic idea is that make a simple sentence complex or compound means increasing a clause or a finite verb. Making a complex or compound sentence. Making a complex or compound sentence simple means decreasing a clause or finite verb. If you increase a clause, there will be an increase of the number of finite verbs. If you decrease a clause, it will make the number, it will make a decrease in the number of finite verbs. That is, finite verb means a clause, and thus whether you decrease or increase number of clauses, there will be decrease or increase of finite verbs in the sentence. But making a complex but making a complex sentence compound or a compound sentence, complex there will be no increase or decrease of any clause or finite verb. There will be only alteration between the relative pronouns or relative conjunctions with conjunctions. These are the three principles of changing transformation between the simple, complex and compound sentences. I think you will be benefited from the classes on the topic I have so far taken, and I will come with a new grammatical item in the next class on July 29. Till then, I say goodbye to you. Keep well, keep safe, maintain the hygiene rules to remain free from the severe attack of corona or other fatal diseases. Thank you all. Thank you for today.